guest this week is a commercial model who appeared on TV commercials in the Philippines. She is also the lead singer, the producer, and the creative director of a Filipino folk fusion band, the SamaSama Project. She is also a journalist, a writer, and an IT professional. She founded a group called the League of Volunteers for Relief Expeditions, and she is also the current president of the Filipino Young Leaders Program in partnership with the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. Our guest is Ella Rose Cabalona. We're asking ourselves, how did she manage herself for the time that she is busy in the community and in the family? Why did she move from the Philippines to Chicago, Illinois? And what are the challenges she met to become who she is today? Our guest again is Ella Rose Cabalona. I would like to remind our viewers to click on the subscribe button and the bell button so you will get a notification every time a new video is being released. This is Janet Jordy at Global Inspiration, where you need to be seen, need to be heard, and be an inspiration to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our guest this week, Ella Rose Cabalona.
Hello there, Janet. Thank you for having me at your show. I'm very honored and happy to be here.
It is the pleasure of Global Inspiration to have you on the show, Ella Rose Cabalona. Tell us more about yourself and what brought you here in Illinois, USA.
Well, yeah, I've been here for close to 2 decades now. It's a long history, but currently I am an IT professional that works for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. And in my moving to the US, I was also looking for an outlet for my passion for Filipino culture, which brought me to start a band called SamaSama Project. It's a Filipino folk fusion band. And that has always been my two passions, IT as well as theater. I actually was an actor in the Philippines, musical theater, TV, and like you mentioned earlier, commercials. So when I moved over here close to 20 years now, I decided I still wanted to do the same, and even more so with a bigger purpose of really pushing for Filipino culture awareness here in Illinois. What brought me here is my IT job. I actually got an assignment to work for Walgreens Corporation out in Deerfield, Illinois. And that was meant to be a 3-month project. And I was supposed to fly back home right after that. But as fate would have it, I got assigned to another project and eventually I, just really got employment here permanently. And soon after that, met my now husband, Baron. And so there's no going back from there.
That's wonderful to know. That's wonderful to know. I understand that you are a commercial model. You appeared on TV commercials in the Philippines. And if I remember it right, among others, are the Selecta Sunday Jolex version and the Lucky Me Spicy Hot Mommy. And you were also, correct, right? And you were also a musical theater actor working for the Repertory Philippines. In other words, you are into arts and entertainment field. Question is, what enticed you to be in that field?
I had always been interested in theater. As a matter of fact, when I was in my junior year, it was the 25th anniversary of our school's founding, St. Paul College in Pasig. And the biggest way they were going to celebrate that year is by putting together a musical. And I wanted so bad to be a part of the show. I actually did not get invited to the auditions, which was just exclusive to a selected group of students. But, you know, fate, it just works, right? I have a funny story about that. I actually got sent to the principal's office for having a skirt that's too long. And then the teacher who was in a way reprimanding me remembered that I acted, and they said, you know what, you could be good for one of the roles that we are auditioning for. So instead of giving me a pink slip for having a too long skirt, she instead told me to go to the auditorium in the afternoon to audition. And guess what? I actually got the role. That was in junior year. And, looking back, I've always had theater in my life. Even if I look at pictures from when I was in nursery, I played the role of Mama Mary or the mother cat, or, like all of these like small theater productions in school. So it's just been my background ever since. And when I finished college, I was still looking for it. So I finished IT, and while I was doing that, I was working for, like you mentioned, Repertory Philippines. Then I went to Tanghalang Filipino. Then I also got a gig in Singapore with Theater Works Limited. So I was also doing theater in Singapore just before I moved here.
It's a fantastic experience, Luella. So you are also the lead singer and the producer and the creative director for a Filipino folk fusion band, the SamaSama Project. Tell us more about that journey.
Yeah, so SamaSama Project is very special to me. It was in 2008, right? I'd only really been in the US a few years then. But Ninang Veronica and Ninang Joe Mauricio, we were friends and we had been hanging out in the studio at that point already. And they told me that there was is a school in Chicago. It's called Old Town School of Folk Music that was actually looking for Filipino musicians and singers that sang our songs, Filipino folk songs, and kundiman and authentic Filipino music. Now, I was around circles of musicians and singers because there's a lot of them here, like a lot of Filipino artists here, but none of them actually played Filipino music. They were playing pop. They were doing ballroom. They were doing, gigs and parties. And that's not, Filipino music is not staying in any of those. So that struck me that I knew so many musicians in Illinois, Filipinos, but none of them actually played our music. And so I spoke to Old Town School of Folk Music and I said, "What do you need?" Because I feel like we have to have representation here, and if it means me putting together a group of friends that are all musicians, we want our music represented. And that was the start of Sama Sama Project.
Good to know that. I consider you, Luella Rose Cabalona, as a great leader. You founded a group, the League of Volunteers for Relief Expedition. What was your motivation in creating the group? What was the mission of the group? And name few of the initiatives.
So yeah, so I don't want to take full credit on it. It really is my husband's big idea, but it's also partnered with another organization, like a loose organization, just a network of friends that responded to the call of our kababayans in the Philippines during the time when there were a lot of typhoons happening in the Philippines that was killing thousands, hundreds and thousands of our kababayans. I remember starting hearing about Ondoy, if you recall, and then there was Hayan, right? And a year after year, they had that, and because we wanted to answer the needs of the less fortunate folks that were losing their homes and really losing lives to the lives of their loved ones, I formed what was called ILPRO, Illinois Philippines Recovery Operations. And the goal of that group was to use the talents of our fellow Phil Am artists here in the Chicago area to produce shows and concerts so that we can raise money to bring back to the Philippines and help them. Now, what happened is my husband said, let's tie that up with what I'm interested in doing. He is a nurse by profession, and he actually has a really good friend, Dr. Ariel Tolentino, who was a doctor in the Philippines, but is a nurse practitioner here. And they said, I want to continue this. So at the time when there were not too many big typhoons happening anymore, they said, let's continue the fundraising, but instead, let's make sure that we bring medical aid to cities and towns in the underserved areas in the Philippines. They're younger doctors and nurses, so these are a group, a league of volunteers, like you said, that would really climb up mountains, that would cross rivers, that would go to islands without electricity to bring medical aid, to do minor surgeries, have medical missions, especially in areas where not too many people want to go. And
Yeah.
that's the League of Volunteers.
I've seen a lot of photos on your Facebook account, and I was so impressed. This is what I mean helping. You are actually hands on. I saw you, I saw your pictures, I saw your husband's pictures, and some of the nurses, and I was telling myself, no, this is a couple with big hearts. So, another question. It is a challenge for most of Asians to land a decent job in America. Share with us, the viewers, how you become a senior manager of business management platform for data and analytics solutions for Blue Cross Blue Shield in Illinois.
I have to thank a lot of people for that. Of course, it entails having a good education, something I have to thank my parents for, obviously in the Philippines. And they were the ones working hard for me to have that education. But then once I got that too, it's really hustling, making sure that you have a great work ethic, right? So that you work with peers and managers that believe in your capability, and when they see an opportunity for you to grow, they bring you along. That's the best way I can put it. Of course, um, it's working hard, but it's also building those relationships with people who trust you. And I'll be humble in saying that I wouldn't get to where I am now if not for my managers and my mentors who took me under their wing and made sure that when they got the opportunity to rise, they also brought me along with them. So I'm thankful for them as well.
Lovely, lovely. So, one of the many accomplishments you have is being the current president of the Filipino Young Leaders Program, which is a 501c3 or a nonprofit organization. And this is formed, I think, in partnership with the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. Now, share with us what are your plans now that you are on the top leadership?
Lots. Again, like many things, like SamaSama Project, Pro is one that's very close to my heart as well. I was selected as one of the 10, only 10 delegates across the USA in 2012 when this was initiated by the Philippine Embassy at that time. They brought home these 10 delegates to experience the Philippines in a way that we probably would not experience it if we just went home on a vacation. They gave us the opportunity to meet business leaders, leaders of the government, media, and social entrepreneurship, and really helped us see the side of the Philippines that is working to bring progress to the Philippines. So I was very inspired by that, and I wanted to immediately give back. So in 2015, when we had the opportunity to build a not-for-profit to continue the mission that the ambassador Quisha during that time started, we in a group of other alumni, I would call, from 2012 to 2015, got together and incorporated as a not for profit and made sure that we actually had those immersion programs continue year after year after year. So that was happening until 2019 because, as you know, COVID happened in 2020. And this year is actually our ninth year of immersion, since 2012, right? So gearing up for the upcoming 10th year, I wanted to make sure that PhilPro was still going to be in the map 10, 20 years from now. So my focus is sustainability for the organization. I'm really putting my business thinking cap on and saying, what can we do to establish not for profit this not for profit PhilPro as a sustainable org that that will continue to bring delegates, young leaders to the Philippines year after year, and also bring value to the global Filipino community by supporting these excellent young leaders that come out every year. So that is my mission right now, is to make sure that is sustainable and that PhilPro can stand up on its own. And about 5 years from now, I envision, like it having full-time employees, PhilPro being, all over the world, not just in the US. We're not just getting young leaders in the US, but also, in Australia, in the Middle East, in Hong Kong, in China, and have them go to the Philippines and experience it the way we did it
Yeah.
in 2012.
You are an amazing person, Luella Rose Cabalona. You are all over. You're so active in the community as a community leader. You are a writer, you are a journalist, you are a newscaster, you are a model, you are a singer, you're all over the place. Plus, you are a mother to your son, Rain, and to a wife to your hubby, Baron. Question is, what do you do to give yourself a break? Or another way of asking you, what are your hobbies? Do you cook? Do you do yoga? Except singing, because I know you sing.
I actually feel like everything I'm doing is is not really like a it's not really work to take a break from. Like um these are these are all the things that I enjoy doing. And what I just try to make sure of is that I have enough time for each one of those, and also have ample time for my family. I think if you were to ask me what I do to take a break, is every now and then, at least once a year, I like going out of the country. Like I go on vacation out of the country for 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably like the big break that I give. But on a regular, like my in a span of like 2 3 months, like I think I just make sure, in order for me to not burn out, right? Because there's a lot that we're doing, that I am able to allot a little piece of my time in a week for all of these things that are important to me.
You are a very busy person and you have a lot of accomplishments. Can you share with us one or two of of your successful stories?
There's one that I can think of right now because I just recently shared this with a group of women, who are working in the IT field, specifically in data science. And I had the opportunity to speak to them as part of a panel last week. And I was sharing with them a story, um, when I was still very new in the IT industry. So I graduated, and I'm dating myself for this, in 1999, just before the Y2K. I went into IT because the big buzz was about Y2K, and they said everybody who goes and graduates with a computer science degree is going to get big bucks, right, with their salary. And this is in the Philippines. So I completed that degree, and that time, it was already close to 2000 when I finished. They I couldn't find a job that I felt like was paying me the money that I needed. So I took a job that was just okay. it was, I remember, and I'm gonna say it because it's such a long time now. They were paying me 11,000 pesos per month for that one job. But I told myself, I'm gonna give myself just 2 years max. And if I feel like I'm not growing in this company, I'm gonna find another company that will give me, something that is really commensurate to my experience and my educational background. So exactly 2 years after, I started looking for another job. And I did get an offer for something that was more, a lot more than what I originally had as salary. But when I realized after asking people that my salary, that salary that they were offering me, was still not at par with what I should be getting, I figured I should ask for more. Remember, I already got an offer. This was for 18,000 pesos monthly from my original 11,000. But I said, I am worth more than that. My experience is worth more than that. I know that I'm capable of more for this. So I rejected the offer and said, you know what? I feel like my value is more than that. I want to ask for 22,000, exactly 100% from my current salary. And I pushed that paper back. I was so scared that I wasn't going to get that offer. But guess what? They came back to me and gave me exactly what I wanted. So I just scored at that point in time, early in my career, I scored a salary that was 100 times, 100% times bigger than what I actually got.
Wonderful, wonderful story. So now that people know about you and the SamaSama Project, can you share with us any website or any social media accounts in case they want to get in touch with you or the band?
We are on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. If you search Sama Sama Project, you will find us there. But then also, I'm starting to build just like an online profile that is just me, apart from the band. And you will find me, and it's just very new, but please, message me and let's connect over there. It's Loella Rose. So you'll find me on Instagram as Loella Rose Cabalona, on Facebook as Loella Rose. And then, of course, I have my website, loellarose.com.
Okay, thank you very much. I consider you very aggressive, hardworking. You don't settle for less, you always settle for the best. And that means that you have an inspiration. And who is that inspiration?
I would say it would be my Lola. It would be my Nanay Tasing. Although, she's not with us anymore. And when we were younger, I was kind of scared of her. But just looking at the experience that she has gone through, um, from her own words as well as from the words of her children, she in the during World War II, right? During the 40s, 50s, she actually was helping send messages to the fighters, the Filipino guerrilla fighters, right? To fight the Japanese. And after the war, when everybody lost everything in the Philippines, she started over by doing anything. Like she was, what's the word? She was actually buying and selling goods and traveling distances so that she would bring those goods to the people who actually needed them until the point where she bought herself a jeepney, and that's how she was selling her wares, whatever it was. It was cooking things, everything, right? Through Bulacan and Mandaluyong and Pasig, where our family lives now. That's how she and my lolo started. And my mom and all the siblings would admit that it was my lola Tasing that was really making the big decisions in the family.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
managed to put through school 11 of her siblings, and she eventually bought this huge lot right across um, Ortigas Avenue. that is now where all of her kids and we in the Philippines are living. So she lived a fearless life, and I'm really hoping that I could be just half as close as what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful person. For our viewers, Lola means grandma, Lolo means grandpa. So, my last request from you, I would be asking you to give our viewers an inspirational thought or messages based on your life experience.
For me, I think if there's anything that always worked in my favor, is to just do not fear trying, do not fear asking. Like I shared in the story earlier, I wanted more for my salary, I asked for more. If I wanted to speak with people that are with titles, like the VPs and the directors and people who you feel like, oh, they're not going to give me the time. Just ask, because you'll never know, right? If you want to have a job, ask people. If you want to perform in a certain place, ask them. Do not fear trying. And the worst thing is you don't get it, but the biggest thing that could happen is you actually get it. And if you do, then you're on your way to the next challenge. And so I think it's very simple. Just do not fear trying.
Exactly, and I agree with you. Do not fear trying, do not be scared, and always ask. Because the answer that you will get is either yes, no, or maybe next time. Thank you very much, Lou, for the interview tonight. And it is the honor and prestige of Global Inspiration to have you as a guest. This is Janet Jordy at Global Inspiration, where you need to be seen, need to be heard, and be an inspiration to the world.